Friends, hello, it's Petra. This is Saturday morning live Q&A, and jump on in, don't be shy. I love to hear your questions. I love to hear your stories. I always learn so much from you. So welcome and jump right in. And I'm so excited to talk about bee kraut and so many other things to share. But I love to begin the beginning of our live Q&As with, a song, a story, with a poem, with something to ground us in our time together. And this morning, some words I thought it would only be appropriate from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I love when Fred, Scrooge's jovial nephew, comes waltzing through his door with a wreath to wish his Uncle Scrooge a Merry Christmas. And Scrooge says, "What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough." And Fred responds, "What right of you to be dismal? You're rich enough." And I just love that little moment, that little conversation they had. And of course, I'd love to just riff for a moment because Charles Dickens, of course, was a revolutionary, and he was talking about inequality in very revolutionary, unprecedented ways in his time. And here's the thing, we love what we critique, and we must critique what we love. And these are critical things in our times and all time, because it was revolutionary for Charles Dickens to be writing about what he was writing about at the time. But they're still relevant today. So there's something that we're not quite translating into our evolution as a society. And so I suspect that it is this. For all of the beauty and the power and the potential and just for all of the tradition of A Christmas Carol, here is a thing that we mistake. We are waiting for Scrooge to have the change of heart. We're not waiting for, ourselves. We're waiting for Scrooge. And what if we all are Scrooge? And what if we all are Fred? And, Kermit the Frog. I can't talk about A Christmas Carol without just seeing the entire cast of A Muppet Christmas Carol singing in unison. But that being said, we cannot wait for our leaders to lead us. We cannot wait for the wealthy to think it's time to finally give back. We can't wait for the people in power to think that we need to all be agents of our own destiny. And so I love Charles Dickens. I love Charles Dickens a lot. And I offer you also this observation this morning, that as you're thinking about A Christmas Carol and thinking about its story and its power, don't mistake, I beg of you, friends, don't make the mistake that we need the people who are in control and are powerful. We can't wait for our leaders to lead us, because we are the leaders we've been waiting for. So this is also a cordial invitation, because tonight there is a whole crew in here in our little town and we are doing a live reading of A Christmas Carol on Zoom, of course. And it's going to be hilarious. Amazing sound effects, full beautiful piano accompaniment. It's going to be breathtaking. And hysterical. And so this is your cordial invitation. You'll find the link in the comments, and it's tonight at 7 o'clock. Tonight, Saturday the 19th at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And all are welcome. You'll note there is a password, and it is JOY, bringing more joy to the season. So yes, I am so grateful to to have you join us. And Kat says, yes, we as a group must make the change, buying organic for one or regenerative grown. Yes, we cannot wait for our leaders to lead. We can't wait for the Scrooges of the world to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be such a jerk. like let's all hold ourselves accountable in love for doing this work. And so glad we are here together, friends. And Jason says, good morning from South Carolina. We love you. We love you too. Oh, I'm sending huge love to South Carolina. And hi from Ohio, getting seed catalogs already, and we'll be visiting fruitions too and visualizing 2021 in the garden. Yay! Beautiful. Cat, that sends shivers down my spine. And oh my gosh, we're about to launch a new website, by the way, so stay tuned. And in case you're wondering if we have a paper catalog, we don't. There's kind of two truths around it. One is the whole like kind of greenwashing, like we don't need to cut down more trees to make no new paper products, which has its merit. We don't need more disposable anything. But also, Matthew and I and our team, there's 9 of us here at Fruition. Holy moly. We don't have on our team the skills to like make a catalog, make a paper catalog, like all of that design and layout. We have a lot of amazing skills on our team. That is not one of them. So, we've really been, just what do we do? What do we love to do? Let's do that. So there's lots of reasons why we don't have a catalog. And they're all totally valid. And Brian says, good morning. Good morning, Brian. And oh my gosh, it's so lovely. And oh my gosh, my mother, Shelley Page, is with us. Good morning, Mom. I love you. I miss you. And so yeah, I wanted to share with you this morning too. And P.S., by the way, this is live Q&A. So jump on in if you have a comment, if you have a story, if you have a question, don't be shy. And I especially would love to hear what you are eating from your garden right now. Feel free to just pop it in the comments. Are you still harvesting spinach? Maybe you just harvested the last of your carrots or potatoes. And I brought to share with you this morning, and it's so perfect my mother is here because she loves this and I love her. This is beet kraut. So it's sauerkraut, but instead of being made out of cabbage, we make it out of beets. And it's so delicious. I am quite Polish, it's true. So I think there's a lot of deep intergenerational, both emotional, spiritual, and like straight up biological in my blood, like love of beets and cabbage. But yeah, you can turn any vegetable basically into a ferment of any kind. So I wanted to give you just the broad brushstrokes of how to make your own ferment, just in case you feel so inspired, because it brings me a lot of joy. And I love sharing what brings me joy, hoping that it might bring you joy as well. So yeah, to make any kind of kraut or like a basic ferment, you just want to chop up vegetables and you combine them like 1 quart of vegetables to a tablespoon of salt, and you mix in the salt and mash them down. So basically I think of it as you're kind of breaking the cell walls so that you're inviting that salt to enter more deeply into those vegetables, and they draw out the liquid as salt does, and then they create their own brine that then they sit in and just become this delicious pickle inside. So making your own kraut is super fun and super delicious, and I love taste it. Every time it's a little different. Mom, I can't wait for your beet kraut to arrive. But in the meantime, you'll just have to imagine it's different and it's similar than as what we ate ravenously 2 years ago. And, or was that just last year? Oh my gosh, time and I. But every time I love ferments because it reminds me that every moment is a new moment. Every life, although it resembles life that has been on this planet for billions of years, there's nothing quite like this particular iteration. So it's a beautiful expression of how we all live together and evolve together. And Madhuri says, good morning from Atlanta. We are harvesting spinach. Oh my gosh, lettuce, radish, kale. Oh, that's awesome. Greetings and blessings. Enjoy the abundance. And thank you so much for sharing. And Brian says, still eating some parsley and kale. Yes, us too. I just went to harvest parsley through the snow yesterday. It was so wonderful, and it's so tender and sweet. And Kat says, garlic, dried some, and want to pickle some too. Yes. Roasting and making garlic bread to put in the freezer to have garlic bread when it's needed with meals. Oh my gosh. Enjoy every bite. I love garlic so much, and I love you so much. And Jolene says, while not ideal, would beets from the store work? Beets don't want to grow for me usually. Oh, well, let's talk about both of those things. So yes, any beets will do. Totally. If you buy them from the store, fabulous. You're actually making them more nutritious by fermenting them than you would be just eating them straight up from the store. So don't judge yourself. I don't judge you anyway. So how amazing that you have food. You're luckier than over 1 billion people on this planet that you have access to fresh beets. So yes, they might not be homegrown, but oh my gosh, we give thanks and enjoy the abundance. So yes, don't be shy. And beets don't usually want to grow for me and my family. Oh man, Jolene, I'm glad we're friends and let's talk. So there's usually 2 things going on with beets not thriving for people. Usually it's a thinning issue. So like not giving them enough space between plants so that the roots can actually enlarge. Because here's a fun, crazy little fact. Every tiny little beet seed is actually like 4 or 5 beet seeds inside that one seed. It's a special, very unusual kind of seed that Beta vulgaris, beets, and switchard, they both have the same phenomena where it looks like you're planting one seed, but there's actually 4 or 5 germs, little germination points inside that one seed. So you have no choice but to thin your beets or else you're not going to get beets. If they're that close together, you know, imagine they're tiny little beet seed and there's 4 plants trying to grow from that one point. They're not going to grow into a great big beet root. So you'll get some greens for sure, but the beet root won't form below. So thinning is usually people's issues. And so you can thin anytime until they're like 3 inches tall is ideal. Once those greens are more than 3 inches tall, at that point, they're like starting to feel crowded and like, and stressed as a result. And so they can recover from that, but not nearly as abundantly as if you had thinned them prior. So a really common mistake also in thinning, beyond not thinning, is just not thinning in time. You know, if you don't get them early enough, they won't size up. So usually it's a thinning issue, but it could also be a fertility, specifically a boron issue. So there are, hundreds of micronutrients in addition to the core macronutrients that plants need to grow. And boron is one of them. And if boron, often that can be a limiting factor in soils. And that's not a limiting factor for carrots. Also not a limiting factor for Brussels sprouts. But for whatever reason, beets think boron is really important to their lives. And so if beets don't have boron, they're also not going to invest much in their root development. So it again is and super easy to add boron to your soil, but generally that's not the issue. Generally it's a thinning issue. But anyway, that was a long, lovely response to your question. And I can't wait to hear next June. We've got, if you're here in Zone 5 with us, we're planting beets, at the end of April, beginning of May, and we're planting them every few weeks until mid-August. So you've got plenty of time in 2021 to dial in your beet game, and I can't wait to join you in this. And John says, just had the latest fresh cauliflower, the last fresh cauliflower last night. Oh my gosh. And cauliflower greens. I love that you eat your cauliflower greens, John. We do too. And they're so good. And I'm so glad you know that, as my mother would say, many parts are edible, both animal and vegetable. And Kat says, sauerkraut. Yes, I put carrots in mine. Absolutely. Have you done beets and cabbage or just beets? Oh man. Oh goodness, what haven't I done? Which isn't to say I've done it all, which is only to say whatever I've got is what goes in the crock to make kraut. So it's whatever I've got on hand. So there's all kinds of things. Dahlia tubers are my favorite kimchi ingredient. It's true. We just happen to have lots of dahlia tubers from our farm. And we eat them. Dahlias were totally domesticated in Montane, Mexico as a food crop. Who knew? This is what colonization looks like. We take food and think it's flowers, and now 100 years later, really, the Victorians in the late 1800s went nuts. And it's ever since then, no one even thinks about dahlias being delicious or food. Colonization, we see you. We're coming for you. Yes, so full permission to play. And I have to think Sandor Krauts is my, Kraut, Sandor Katz is my primary. Maybe it was 2005. I was living in British Columbia, and wild fermentation his book, Wild Fermentation, became a part of my life. And he's just kind of this Molly Katzen, this like moosewood cookbook of fermentation, where he's like, here's a great base recipe and you just do with it whatever you want. And it's not like Michelin 5 stars, but it's you doing what you want, getting the foundation and the fundamentals so that then you can go crazy and live into your best and highest, rather than someone else's idea of what is a fabulous recipe at Chez Panisse or wherever. So I love, Art of Fermentation is his second book, and also the Wild Fermentation is his first book, and they're both just phenomenal and beautiful invitations to play. And Jen says, we pickled beans, pickling cucumbers, Brussels sprouts, and asparagus. We'll be enjoying them tomorrow at our Christmas gathering. Yay, that's amazing. Enjoy every bite. I'm so glad some of your homegrown goodness is going to be part of your family celebration, because that's certainly how I think about our food and our gardens. I think of them as our family as well. When people ask if we have children, we say yes, and great grandchildren, and they grow us more than we grow them. And yes, I have a hard time too growing beets. Maybe my clay soil. Clay soil definitely doesn't help, and rocks don't help too. Although beets aren't as susceptible to clay and rocky soils as carrots are, for sure. And did not know that about beets. Many seeds in one. Totally. Oh my gosh, so cool. And cucumber beetles, how do you get rid of them? Well, here's a couple of thoughts. First and foremost, so like in organic gardens, if you don't care about organics, you have like literally a chemical cousin of Agent Orange that's legal for you to spray on your cucumbers. Yes. Welcome to America. But if you are interested in, whether it's an interest in organics or just an interest in being able to eat the food that you grow, there are a number of different other kinds of options for you. So my favorite is exclusion. So if you are growing your cucumbers, and cucumber beetles love not only cucumbers, right? They love zucchini and summer squash and winter squash and watermelons, anything in that cucurbit family. And so any of those things, when we plant them, we actually cover them with hoops and floating row cover. We have both of these on our website, and these hoops are these spring steel hoops that can bend into any configuration. And we bought like couple hundred back in 2012 when we started Fruition, and we still have them. They're amazing. They last a really long time. So we have those hoops every 5 feet on the bed, and then we put floating row cover over it, which is basically like a super thin sheet, but like old bed sheet is not going to cut it. That's not going to let the UV and other important rays of light so that the plants can effectively photosynthesize. So this floating row cover is crucial so that the sun can still come through, the light and the rain can still come through, but Cucumber beetles are excluded, so you want to wait and have the edges nice and taut of your floating row cover. I've got lots of great blogs about this, by the way. And so yeah, you don't just get to hear me talk about it, you get to see it live in action. So check out our YouTube channel, check out our blog. But so that way, that exclusion of cucumber beetles is without question your best bet for making your plants. Basically, if you can get your plants, whether it's a zucchini or a cucumber or watermelon, to the point where they're flowering and beginning to fruit before they ever have a cucumber beetle munch them, they're going to be just fine. And they're not going to be as susceptible to all of the diseases that are secondarily passed on through the cucumber beetles. So, of course, like all those crops are cross-pollinated, so you need to take the floating row cover off so insects can pollinate their flowers, or else you won't get fruit. But here's the thing, if you can have them be just not touched by a cucumber beetle by the time they're flowering and fruiting, they're strong enough, they're resilient enough to survive just fine, which is amazing. So other ways to get rid of, there are other things that you can do for cucumber beetles too, but that without question is the number one best. And thanks for asking. And thank you. I will try this next year. Try those ideas for growing beets. I love beets. I do too. Thank you. I knew about the seed clusters and we'll thin them. We'll have to add some boron then. Yes, Kat. I'm also in Ohio. That's awesome. I was born in Ohio. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Fun facts. Oh wow. There's some wonderful songs about Cincinnati that would love to sing. And Brian says, I eat spring hostas, but never dahlias. Yes! I know, hostas in spring. Oh my gosh, they are. I just learned a few years ago. I was like, of course, they're in the Liliaceae family. I see it now. But yes, I'm so glad you know hostas, young hostas are delish. Love your bib overalls. Can you let us know what brand? Oh my gosh, well, I don't personally feel comfortable endorsing any brands. I know that's kind of facetious and I'm a jerk because like I have a seed company, so like I effectively am Fruition Seeds. But so that being said, Carhartt is not paying me to advertise these bibs. But I do love them, and I've had them for almost a decade now, and I found them in a thrift store because check it out. There's this like hole in the knee that I've since patched up with a great big piece of felt. But I think like it looked to me like a battery acid, like it had eaten part of the fabric away, and then it was at a thrift store and I was like, wow, I'll take those. And so yeah, even if I don't want to be endorsing them, I very much like these coveralls, and I think I'll have them for a long time, and they keep me very cozy. And just a couple more questions, friends. I ferment dill pickles with a slice of rye bread. Yes! Garlic in the sun for 3 days. Oh my gosh, wait, can we talk about this? You ferment dill pickles with a slice of rye bread in with them, with garlic in a jar. Is it like salt water? Is there vinegar in this, or is this a lacto pickle? Brian, tell us more. This is life-changing. And you remove the rye bread after 3 days. Oh my gosh, I think this is a lacto ferment. Could you confirm, Brian? That is crazy. I cannot wait to try this. And Justin says, are you selling floating row cover, or recommend where I can buy them? I've had to forego my garden this year due to an infestation or many different bugs. Yes, we do share floating row cover. We actually have 2 different weights. We have a lightweight, which is perfect for insect exclusion. And then we have a heavyweight, which is perfect for season extension. So right now in our fields, our lettuces, our chard, we have so many things under floating row cover. And it is that heavy floating row cover. And good advice. I'll work on that. Thanks, Mark. Well, so much love, friends. It's been so much fun. I learned so much from you. Oh my gosh. Rye bread and pickles for 3 days. Wow. Oh my gosh. So much to learn. And I'm so grateful for you all. So I love to end our Q&As as we begin our Q&As. We're always beginning and we're always ending. And this morning, a quote from Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. I love when Scrooge's nephew waltzes through the door wishing his uncle a Merry Christmas. And Scrooge says, "What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough." And I love it when Fred replies, "Well, what right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough." And I just love this timeless classic that still is so relevant today for what is joy and what is connection and meaning in relation to our financial lives. And I just want to lift up as well that we must love what we critique and we must critique what we love. And Charles Dickens, yes, totally revolutionary for his time, speaking truth to power in amazing ways, talking about inequality in ways that most people, especially white men of his era, were not. And he, as I have been spending more time with A Christmas Carol this last week and reflecting on some of its stories, there is a critical piece of this story that I would love to speak about. So, right, Scrooge is such a bah humbug, and then he has this revelation, and then he realizes that he can be giving all his wealth away instead of hoarding it just for himself. And so I just want to invite us all to remember that it is not just us waiting for the leaders, for the powerful, for the rich, for those in charge. It's not us waiting for leaders to lead. We can't be waiting for Jeff Bezos to realize that he needs to give away more of his wealth. Like, it is up to us. And right, on the one hand, we are, Walt Whitman. We contain multitudes. So I am definitely days where I can relate to Uncle Scrooge. And I'm like, yeah, decrease the surplus population and all kinds of awful things. I can totally relate to Scrooge. I can also totally relate to Fred. Christmas has never put a scrap of silver or gold in my pocket. And yet, so we are all of these characters. And it is so vital that we not wait for our leaders to lead us, for the wealthy to give their wealth away. We have learned since Dickens' era that when the wealthy give their power away, that they're giving that power away in ways that allow them to maintain their power and control. Because if they're like giving that money to causes that are band-aids of the deeper systemic root causes, then they're just perpetuating the system that keeps them in control and comfortable, healthy and wealthy at the top of our economic, social food chains. And so I love A Christmas Carol. I love Charles Dickens. I love that his story is still as relevant and a classic as it's been for generations. And I hope that we can tell the story a little differently so that it won't be as relevant a century from now, a generation from now, tomorrow, if we know that we are the ones that we can change. And we are the ones we have been waiting for. So friends, I love you. Oh yeah, and also, if you would like to join us for A Christmas Carol, a live interpretive reading, join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll see in the comments, there's a little link and there's a password. It's Joy. And it's totally free and it's all just quite a cast of characters here in the Naples Valley. There's going to be amazing sound effects, brilliant piano music, and it's going to be hilarious. I won't tell you what what character I am cast as. And join us. I hope that you do. And whatever you do, thank you for bringing light and joy to this world as only you can.